Oh, hi. So you're probably wondering why I gathered you all here today. And the answer is comic books. For all seven of you who are going to be watching this, it's comic books. I get asked on a more regular basis than makes sense to me what comic books people should be reading, where should they start, what's a good book, all of these questions. And I don't answer them all because, first off, if I start answering just one, it is at minimum like a 16 point conversation going back and forth because I don't just like going, oh, you should read this. It's, I want to know what genre you like. I want to know what characters you're already familiar with from pop culture. Like, did you love the Batman movies and that's what makes you want to read comics? Did you love the Avengers movie? Did you watch the X-Men cartoon when you were a kid and that theme song stuck in your head and now you just want to read more of those comic books? And I don't know. Some people want to read comic books, but they don't like superheroes, and there's all these different things that affect it. So I just thought I would throw out some quick recommendations, as well as why I'm recommending them. And then, I don't know, maybe that starts a conversation. I'm not really sure at all. So I'll start with two characters that most people are already familiar with. You got old Batman, who, if you don't know, you've been living under a very interesting rock that you don't know who the hell Batman is. But you should be reading Batman right now. DC recently went through something called the New 52. It might have been 2 years ago, and I'm just losing track of time. But they did it fairly recently-ish. And the New 52 is designed to simplify continuity, which refers to the 75 years in which Batman has existed. Obviously, there have been a couple of stories that have been told that you're not going to quite be able to... Can't read them all. Or you can, but that's expensive, and you're really only able to do that if you're unemployed and have that much time. But they did something called the New 52, which was ostensibly like a relaunch of their whole universe to try to make it easier to get new readers. So it's a business move, but helpful to you is that they tried to simplify it and give you a jumping on point. So Batman number 1 till now in the New 52 is a really good place to just jump into. The cool part is they have an excellent writer, Scott Snyder, and the artist, Greg Capullo, comes from... He did X-Men back in the 90s, or X-Factor, I can't remember, as well as he was doing Spawn before he did Batman, so he's got that gothic, caped crusader vibe down pat, as well as bringing a certain kind of lightness to it. He's got a very interesting style that he can show Bruce Wayne kicking wholesale ass in the sunshine, as well as that dark, shadowy creature of the night that Batman's supposed to be. And what's cool about their run is, in a lot of stories you find that, in comic books I find, particularly, that you see an awful lot of new supervillains, but they don't catch on for more than like a week. Because they exist for the sole purpose of rising up to give a challenge and then getting their asses kicked by the protagonist, and that's pretty much all there is. But what was interesting is they managed to make a new villain called the Court of Owls, which is it's a mix between like a corporation and an Illuminati type villain, in that they have been guiding the history of Gotham City since the very beginning. And the cool part is how unnerved and how off-put Batman is by the fact that they've been here this whole time and this is the first time he's running into them. There's a nursery rhyme that's existed since he was a kid, but no one believes in it because it's just a nursery rhyme, so but then he finds out they're real, it blows his mind, and he starts investigating them, and it's a whole awesome new villain. As well, Batman will dovetail into another event called Death of the Family, where Joker comes back and starts wreaking wholesale havoc and just insanity because he's the Joker. And it's a great story, and at its core, which is when I love Batman as a character, is he's an actual character. It analyzes his responses to these events and the responses of the people who are around him. So that was really neat. Second book I'd recommend is Hawkeye, written by Matt Fraction, the art by David Aja, and he is one of my favorite artists. He did The Immortal Iron Fist and just killed it. But he's bringing this awesome, down-to-earth, subtle realism, clean line work feel to Hawkeye it's fantastic. Matt Fraction is writing a really human story about what it means to be a human being and to be an Avenger. So, it's just fantastic watching Clint in the real world. And one of my favorite parts of any comic book is when they manage to actually apply real questions that have never come up before. Do you know what I mean? So I like a book that can look at something that's existed forever and find a new way to come in at it. So with Hawkeye, as a human being on a team full of demigods and like Hulk monsters and rich billionaires in suits, the first issue tackles him dealing with his HMO for health coverage on when he gets shit kicked when he's on an Avengers mission. And I just thought it's a brilliant way of immediately grounding a story and making a character who is a glorified archer way more relatable, and it is off-puttingly funny, it is disarmingly charming, and it's a really good book. If you read, it's one of my top recommendations is Batman and Hawkeye. They're really up there, and that's not just for ease of access for getting into, because the book is easy to get into, but just because it's a great book. Off of the superhero theme, if you want to get into comic books as a medium, because comic books isn't a genre, it's a medium that delivers a story. The story could be anything. It's just going to have pictures. My first recommendation is from the horror / psychological supernatural thriller author Joe Hill. You may know him from the fact that he's actually Stephen King's son, but do not hold that against him. It's not nepotism that he has a career. The guy is a brilliant author. Sometime in the near future, you're going to see an adaptation of one of his books with Daniel Radcliffe in it called Horns. So that should be exciting. It's about a guy who wakes up and essentially, you know what? We're talking about comics, not books. So let's not do that. But Lock and Key is the book written by Joe Hill. It's a bit like Narnia in that there's a large manor, and inside are secrets that can only really be accessed by people who still have like the wonderment and the curiosity and the joy of children. So in that way, it's like Narnia, but in every other way, it is like a brutal, unforgiving horror story. It has a malevolent evil that is so sadistic that at times, like, there are shocker moments in that book that just like drop you right down to your knees, or just make you go, whoa, while you're reading it. I don't know how you react to these things. But it's got a great villain, it's got a series, it's got this family unit, and it's all the dynamic and character that you'd expect out of a full family, and it's captivating from start to finish, and the cool part is that I can recommend you a book with a finish. Batman will still have comic books when our grandchildren die. But Lock and Key is finished. There's a beginning, there's an ending, you're done. So many fart noises this fucking video. My last recommendation is Who is Jake Ellis? It is going to be 3 trade paperbacks, so 3 collections of comic books. But right now there's only 2, and it is this pulpy espionage spy thriller. It's not quite real world. I wish I had a comic I could recommend to you that took place entirely in a, realistic and grounded environment. But I don't. Fuck it. I love nerdy shit, and that involves things that can't happen in real life. Who is Jake Ellis centers on our protagonist, who is a bit of a con man / thief, who finds that out of nowhere he starts getting advice from his invisible friend, but he's only invisible to other people. He can see this guy, and the whole story revolves around him trying to uncover who this voice is, where it comes from, who Jake Ellis is, this voice in his head, and this figure at the side of his vision that's telling him what to do, and in a way that saves his life and makes his life easier. So that was it's a great comic book. It is interesting. Chris Samney's doing the art if you want to Google him, and you'll just see it's just a really clean, classic style with a very modern sensibility, and the book itself moves at a very fast pace, which is very enjoyable. I'm really excited for the 3rd book to come out. Only the first 2 are out. Who is Jake Ellis, and where is Jake Ellis? So those are my recommendations. You should be reading Hawkeye, Batman, Lock and Key, and Who is Jake Ellis. And it's a great start. The first 2 are great introductions to the universe that they take place in. And the other ones are really nice because they take place in their own localized universe. So you don't have to buy 30 different tie-in issues to understand what's going on. So, that's it.